Today's video features the former Queen Louise of Sweden. Princess Louise, born in 1889, was the second daughter of Prince Louis of Battenberg and Princess Victoria of Hesse and by Rhine, making her a great-granddaughter of Queen Victoria. Her elder sister was Princess Alice, the mother of Prince Philip of the United Kingdom whom we discussed earlier, and her brother was the former Viceroy of India, Lord Louis Mountbatten. Louise was never considered a great beauty from a young age, especially in comparison to her sister. As she grew older and became increasingly slender, it further affected her appearance. However, a lack of physical beauty can be compensated for by inner qualities, and Louise was of this type. From what we know later, her personality seems to have been quite gentle, which made her well liked. This is a portrait of her in her 20s, and her eye sockets are depicted very vividly. Since her sister Alice married Prince Andrew of Greece, she wanted her younger sister to come to Greece to be with her, so she introduced Louise to her brother-in-law, Prince Christopher of Greece. The two secretly became engaged, but Louise's parents disapproved of Prince Christopher's financial status and forced the couple to break off their engagement. Next, King Manuel II of Portugal proposed to Louise. Louise's parents and King Edward VII were all supportive of the match. However, Louise refused, stating that she would never marry a king or a widower and that she wanted to marry for love. Louise's decision proved wise, as the Portuguese monarchy was abolished the following year. At the age of 25, Louise fell in love again, and the suitor was likely a prince or noble. Louise's parents agreed to the match, but her fiancé was killed in World War I. During the war, Louise worked as a nurse at a French military hospital, a common occupation for royal and aristocratic women at the time. There, Louise met and fell in love with a Scottish commoner, Alexander, who was a painter. Louise's parents found Alexander a bit odd when they met him, but they did not express any concerns. As the wedding approached, Louise's father, Prince Louis of Battenberg, subtly suggested to his daughter that Alexander might be homosexual. After several failed romances, Louise might have become disheartened and decided to remain single for the rest of her life. However, in 1923, fate intervened once more, and this time it was Gustav Adolf, who was then the Crown Prince of Sweden, who proposed to her. Gustav Adolf had no significant flaws, but he was a widower and the future King of Sweden. His first wife, Margaret of Connaught, was Louise's aunt. After Margaret's death, she left behind 5 children, 4 of whom were sons. Even if Louise married Gustav Adolf, the throne would not directly affect her children. However, Louise agreed to marry Gustav Adolf, possibly because she liked him, and also realized that remaining single for the rest of her life was not practical. At that time, getting married at 34 was considered late, especially since her younger brother, Louis Mountbatten, who was 11 years younger, was already married. Feeling that she was still single while others were not, Louise decided to go against her previous decision and marry Gustav Adolf. Because Louise's father, Prince Louis of Battenberg, had renounced his German princely title and adopted the surname Mountbatten during World War I, King George V had granted him the title of Marquis. As a result, Louise only held the title of Lady, which meant that her marriage to Gustav Adolf was considered a noble commoner union. Ultimately, it was Queen Mary of the United Kingdom who, despite considerable opposition, declared that Louise was indeed a princess. Furthermore, an agreement was signed between the British and Swedish royal families, which allowed the marriage to proceed smoothly. On November 3, 1923, 34-year-old Louise married Gustav Adolf in the Royal Chapel of St. James's Palace, with King George V of the United Kingdom and 2 other members of the royal family as witnesses. Regarding the tiara she wore at the wedding, many people, upon seeing the black and white photographs, mistakenly thought it was a large diamond tiara, but in fact, the tiara was made of wax. After Louise married into the Swedish royal family, she had to deal with 5 difficult teenage stepchildren. Particularly challenging was Gustav Adolf's beloved daughter, Princess Ingrid, who filled Louise's new room with photos of her late mother, Margaret of Connaught. For decades, the 5 stepchildren never referred to Louise as aunt and only called her she, but Louise seemed to never say anything about it. In 1925, Louise gave birth to a stillborn child, with some reports suggesting the baby had died in utero. Given her already poor health, she never became pregnant again after this, which must have been a significant trauma for someone who loved children. However, she had a good relationship with her two youngest stepchildren, which somewhat compensated for her loss. It seems that for her, Gustav Adolf's children were like her own. After her death, she left many of her jewels to her step-grandchildren. The triangular diamond tiara was a wedding gift to Louise, which she gave to her step-granddaughter Desiree as a wedding present. Princess Madeleine's aquamarine tiara was also Louise's. Louise gave the brooch to her eldest step-granddaughter, Margaretha. Additionally, since Louise's mother-in-law, Victoria of Baden, was often away for health reasons, Louise not only had to deal with her difficult stepchildren but also had to fulfill the role of First Lady. Although Louise was reportedly quite shy, she quickly adapted to her role as Crown Princess. She was actively involved in public welfare, charitable work, women's and children's health, and gender equality, and she was known for her friendly demeanor. During World War II, with Sweden being a neutral country, Louise actively engaged in a range of Red Cross and charitable activities. She organized gift associations to support the front lines and provided supplies to those in need. She also established an orphanage for Finnish war orphans at Ulriksdal Palace and frequently visited to spend time with the children. In 1950, at the age of 68, Gustav Adolf ascended to the Swedish throne following his father's death, making Louise the queen. She abolished many old traditions, modernizing the royal family and bridging the gap between the monarchy and the public, which was warmly welcomed by the people. In this regard, she was far more successful than her aunt, the last Russian Empress Alexandra Fyodorova. Louise passed away in 1965, with Gustav Adolf, her stepchildren, and step-grandchildren by her side. Louise's brother, Louis Mountbatten, was not very fond of Gustav Adolf and probably felt that her husband was mainly interested in having someone care for the children. However, after attending his sister's funeral, Louis Mountbatten wrote in his diary, "It seems that in the end, he did love her." It's hard to say whether Louise was truly fortunate. Her early romantic life was turbulent, and after marriage, she faced exclusion from her stepchildren. However, she maintained a strong relationship with Gustav Adolf, became queen, and performed her role admirably. On the other hand, if she had not married Gustav Adolf, she might have enjoyed a carefree and happy single life in the UK, alongside other unmarried princesses, without the constraints of royal responsibilities.